And we are live. Thank you for joining us. I am Kwame Norval from Raised Fist Media, joined with my partner in crime, my brother over here, Kahmali Rose. Y'all may
Yes.
know him from the Radical Democracy Show.
What's up? What's up? Just to correct, we are joined by, not with. We are not joined together in any holy matrimony or anything of that sort. Wouldn't mind it. Kwame is a lovely, lovely fella. So, yeah.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
As you can tell, we're going to be a little more off the cuff here today. We're not doing our usual like news segment style show. This will be a little bit more free form and a discussion. Because I feel like it's a topic that needs to be addressed, especially after some things that I've seen recently on some social media going on. I don't want to get too specific because we weren't able to get any posts cleared or anything that we're referencing, but it's a big enough issue that I feel like we can speak pretty generally on it, and I can make reference to some of the things that I've seen without outing people or saying people specifically. But today we did want to talk about a situation that I'd seen arise and a situation that I've seen kind of pop up a little bit in leftist spaces. A meme went around that was Kamala Harris eating pork with the post, "Is this cannibalism?" Which, I mean, on its face, I want to preface this from jump. 1312, all cops are bastards. We are not pro-police in any way, shape, fashion, or form. We are not pro-Kamala in any shape, fashion, or form. You can go down below, check the links, and see, boom, see,
Defund the police, baby. Defund the police.
Defund the police. Defund the police. Like, you can go check our credentials, check our receipts. You can go see the Let's Talk About Kamala video where me and Kahmali did an hour and a half.
No relation between Kahmali and Kamala, by the way. There is no relation there. She has ruined the Kamalex brand. All right. So I just want to make that clear. All right.
Out here fucking the game up.
Yep.
But yeah, we did a whole video, almost 2 hours, holding Kamala's feet to the fire and being critical of Kamala Harris. You could go on the Radical Democracy Show side and see tons and tons of our cop segments where we call out that.
As recently as last week, I had Kwame on the show. We did about 5 different segments specifically about cops, and half of them were, involved Black cops as well. So nobody.
I have been big on the hashtag diversify your oppressors kick because I've always taken issue with people saying, oh, more Black faces in Black places, putting Black people in the police or higher up will fix our issues when we're not talking about the systemic issues that we're having. So I like, don't get it twisted at all. And think otherwise, that we're anyway being nice to the cops here, or going easy on Kamala Harris because she's Black. We are on record numerous times saying extra fuck those people. But the issue that we want to bring light to is a little thing known as lane stepping, which is, for those of you who may not know, it's like a phrase tied to staying in your lane, which is, some conversations you maybe shouldn't lead the charge on. Sometimes, you may want to just bow out and let someone a little bit more equipped to handle that conversation, lead that conversation. And that is where our video starts and where a lot of these issues stem from. Because what I noticed were a lot of people saying, like, pointing out rightfully, like, hey, maybe chill on this because, linking Black people to savagery and cannibalism has its own racist history and connotations that are very problematic. And then a lot of other people refusing to take that, and they're saying, no, all cops are bastards. We're not going to let them slide because they're Black. Homie, no one said that shit. Not a person, not a single person said that we're not going to hold them accountable or say anything because they're black. The problem is, which is exactly what happened in said comment section, that it then leads to spiraling into a bunch of anti-black mess, a lot of racism. There are racist people on the left who will use any excuse to let anti-blackness come out. And it happens every time. This is why we can't trust a lot of our white friends to go down that route of insulting people like Kamala Harris, because you can't do it in a way that's nuanced, and you can't do it in a way that doesn't eventually turn anti-black.
Yeah,
like
and the thing with Kamala too is that, like, we collect our people. You know, like,
yes.
You leave it up to us. We did it. We showed you during that primary. Look at the Kamala Harris's support from black voters. You know, she was single digits. All right, she had single digit support from black voters. All right, even though she was one of just a handful. Look at all the black candidates: Cory Booker, Kamala Harris. We didn't go out there and just do we learned our lesson from Obama. All right. Yep. Most of us learned our lesson from Obama, and we're not sitting there playing allowing people to weaponize identity politics against us and to use that to try to blind us with representation and symbolism and ignore the systemic, substantive, material oppression going on to the masses of people. So, this is something that black folks have proven that they are capable of doing in handling our own family business, essentially. And not to say I am not of the camp or the mindset that nobody is allowed to criticize anyone from another group. Like, I'm not saying that white people cannot criticize black people in any way. No, that would be foolish. I want Bernie Sanders to be able to criticize Obama's policies and not be called a racist, right? So I'm not going to play the game of, like, you cannot criticize someone if you are of the out group. It's not that you must be in the in group in order to criticize someone. It's just to say that there is a correct way to go about criticizing someone, and you can criticize someone based on the substance without crossing the line into, racially insensitive at best, if not just outright racist, but racially insensitive stereotypes or tropes, and propagating those and perpetuating those stereotypes or those tropes about, savagery of black and brown and indigenous peoples. That should be, it's the kind of thing where you usually see it and you're like, wow, if that person just had one black person close to them, just had one real black friend close to them, to be like, nah, man, that ain't it, chief. This ain't it, chief. Yeah,
that's not the way to at all do it. And that's the thing we want to be very clear on, because what I noticed a lot were a lot of people saying, well, I'm not gonna critique them because they're black, or why should we let them slide because they're black? No one is saying that. It's about how you do it. And y'all you clearly, because you, in this very same comment section, talked over a bunch of black people, brown and black people, pointing that out. You talked over them. You dismissed them. You ignored them. So clearly, if you can't respect black people enough to let them have their voice on their issues, then what in any way says that you can handle leading this conversation in general? All right. There are ways you can critique, like Kahmali said, the substance of the issue, and you guys, you lose that, and then that's when people tune out of the whole fucking thing, or you get people who are going to sit there and allow that scapegoat to happen. Like, just let us get that. Let us get this. Black people will come collect ours, and a lot of the time, like, y'all tell on yourselves, because I see the heat that you apply, and it's way harsher for black cops. And you get a little bit more rowdy or violent or harsh with your words than you ever do for white cops. There's like, I don't have the percentage off the top of my head, but I'd be willing to bet overwhelmingly most cops are white. If I had to guess, I would be willing to bet most cops are white.
Oh, so without a doubt, in the U.S., without a doubt,
90%. We'll say 80% of them. You have 80% of police. If we're being 80% of police that you can hold accountable and you can talk about that are white. Why are you going this hard on the black ones? Like, keep it at all cops are bastards and just leave it at that. But then you start dipping into people saying, especially the black ones, they're race traitors and da da da. I don't feel comfortable with white people calling anybody any type of fucking race traitor. That's not your place, because that's 10 steps removed from people calling people Uncle Toms and coons, and that's not for y'all. All right. Yeah. Like, period. I don't need y'all to have that part of the conversation. That's our job to do that. We will be the ones that say that shit. Because once you do that, you're overstepping. And at that point, you're saying, then it gets to the, oh, they're not really black because they're doing this. And you don't get to police blackness, period. There's a lot of nuance there to why black people will sometimes become police officers. All right. And I'm not really fully comfortable with y'all being equipped enough to talk about that at all, period. You know, there's a lot of reasons why people will work in systems that oppress those same people.
Yep.
And y'all are not equipped to discuss that, like, period.
Yeah. And I think that there's this, like, it's not that fine of a line, that you have to walk. It's really just to say that, there are to critique someone substantively is totally in anyone's wheelhouse. You're making a substantive critique. Oh, Kamala Harris, you're making the statement that Kamala Harris, locked up black, parents, and, parents of truant black kids, and disproportionately jailed black and brown people as Attorney General of, over in San Francisco and eventually over all of California. You can make that point. You can make the point about her, using the, supporting slave labor in the jails. Yeah. You can say all of this, like, you can make those points and you can lay those stats out, and that is completely fair game. That's fair game. It's when you start to get to the point of, again, just when you're not, when you don't have enough racial sensitivity to in awareness of these situations to recognize when you're just way outside of your lane, to be talking about Uncle Toms and coons.
This goes for Candace Owens too. Like, I'm a black leftist. We are black leftists right fucking here. If you want to talk shit about Candace Owens, point to any of the other black leftists and platform them. The ones who are shouting her down or arguing against her fucking points. All right, we exist. There are tons of black activists out there that counteract everything Candace Owens stands for and says, like, on a daily basis. You can amplify one of them. Like, yes, give us a fucking platform. All right. And then to see people say, like, all right, well, if I can't critique this person, why don't y'all? We do. You just don't listen to us. If you had enough black voices in your timeline, you would see that we do. If you were subscribed to the Radical Democracy Show, you would see there are black folks out there on the left who call out fucking police brutality and the issues regardless of what the race is. All right. We are having these conversations. It is not our fault that you're not fucking listening. All right.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, and it's literally that, like, that's what we are, that's part of why we are here, is to make sure, is to sort of, and part of why I set out on in doing the Radical Democracy Show was because I saw that it was, what spawned sort of out of the Bernie Sanders, campaign, 2020 campaign. And, just seeing the whole Bernie bro narrative that erases out all of the black left and tries to invisibilize us and tries to just homogenize the left into saying, oh, well, the left is just this entirely white, sort of cis white, male space, and to try to combat that narrative, right? Folks like Breonna Joy Gray and Nina Turner, and out there doing that kind of work to say, no, listen, no, standing up and saying, no, we're out here, hear us. And even other folks, Katie Halper as a Jewish leftist woman, to use her voice and her platform. She can criticize. Katie Halper is able to criticize Israel in a way that others aren't, because she is Jewish. It gives her a,
Right, I was going to say someone did bring that point up. Someone said, "Well, you know, should we not call out Jewish people like Ben Shapiro when they're doing nonsense like that? Do we just let them slide because they're Jewish?" And I'm like, there are Jewish people on the left who call them out. You could point to someone like that.
But I would argue, though, that you can call out Ben Shapiro, and we should call out Ben Shapiro.
And you can call him out, but call out his substance. It has nothing to do with him being Jewish. There's no, like you can do it without saying, oh, but he's a bad Jew because he does this, or he's a, like, no, leave that whole thing out. Argue against his point. You can leave out him being a traitor, leave all of that out for the own community to come fucking do.
Exactly. And if you accidentally, fall into some trope, it happened before in some way with Ilhan Omar. It happened in a slight way. Like, there are certain tropes that I am not aware of as a Black person. There are tropes about Jewish people that I am not aware of as a Black person. And sometimes I may try to go out there and criticize something. And trust me, there are good faith and bad faith versions of the critique. Yes. Listen, we must be able to critique Israel and what they do to Palestinians, okay? I'm not going to stand by on the sidelines as Israel and their right-wing fascist government, reactionary government, right-wing reactionaries, abuse, create an apartheid state, just kill Palestinians, at will, give them no kind of rights, hold them in the largest open-air prison, occupy their land, kick them out of their homes. Like, I'm not going to stand by and sit idly by and watch it happen and be accused of anti-Semitism for criticizing Israel on these issues. However, I'm not going to pretend as though I understand every trope that there is. And when I criticize, if somebody tells me, if a Jewish person that I know is a good faith actor, is a leftish Jewish person, comes in and says, listen, Kahmali, the way that you're criticizing it's falling into this trope. If I'm saying stuff like, if I'm trying to create some idea of like, there's some like, secret cabal of Jewish people that are the real people holding on to all the money and power in society. And I'm using tropes like that and saying like, Jewish people, this happens in hip hop often, to be real. The way that they'll go after Jewish people and act as if Jewish people have some power and stuff like that. And not recognizing that those are just stereotypical tropes that are used against Jewish people. Oh, Jewish people have money, or they're money grubbing and things like that. And so if I'm trying to be critical in a substantive way, and a Jewish person comes to me that I know is coming to me in good faith and says, listen, hey, the way that you're going about this, you're making, maybe your sentiment and your point is correct, but the way that you're going about it is a trope, and it is dangerous. It's a dangerous trope that is perpetuating the stereotype about Jewish people. Then I absolutely must take that under consideration, must alter, the way that I am critiquing something. It doesn't mean to say that no Black person or no person in the out group, nobody that's non-Jewish, can't critique Israel or critique a Jewish, a Jewish state or anything like that. It means that if you are insensitive to certain things and certain stereotypes in that community, and you do this in a certain way, then it is absolutely within the bounds of reasonable debate for somebody to come in and step in and say, listen, it's out of line. This is out of line here. And it doesn't, with this, in this case, it's tying Black people or Black or indigenous people to savagery and cannibalism is not a good look. It's just not, it's not a good look. It's not there's tropes about it. Oh, they're uncivilized, the savagery, that sort of thing. And what you're doing is you're giving Kamala Harris, honestly, you're giving her a pass. You're allowing her to then come out and say, oh, look at the left. The left is racist. They're xenophobic. They're going to, and they'll use it to try to discredit the left, right? So Black people, Black leftists that are doing this, we're trying to do it to save, the white leftists from themselves, and to try to, protect, shield you from that sort of criticism, and to actually come out here. And we use our identity, and we put ourselves out there and use our identity as a shield in many cases. I've said that on my show before, like, listen, I'll come out here. Let me be the one to critique Obama, Lloyd Austin, Kamala Harris. Like, let us come out here and do the critique of them, because people can't turn around and say, oh, I'm racist against Black people. It's like, oh, for real? I mean, not to say that there aren't Candace Owens out there, but look at my content, look at what we do overall. You can't level that that charge against me credibly. So
it doesn't make sense. And not just that, like the other reason is because it then opens up people to come in with shenanigans and bullshit. Because and I hope to post this in that same group so that people can see the point we were trying to make, but that thread really just devolved to the point where we had some white dude literally in there telling people that he's an organizer and he's been to all these protests and gotten arrested on behalf of black people so he could speak with authority. And then he's like, nah, my black friend agrees with me. And then he drops a video of his black friend co-signing that nonsense. That's the garbage that it ends up going to. I then at my, like, this man, I got to take a, let's call him Timmy. I got to take a special shout out to say, fuck you, Timmy, for, I hope you bought that man at least a burger since you tokenized this man and put him on camera to come fucking suit your point and boost you up to look like the damn hero. Because that's the garbage that fucking leads to. All right, is it like you get a little bit too, and then that mob justice starts to come in, and all of a sudden someone's like, yeah, fuck the black cops, they're the worst of all, they're the most traitorous, they're the ones I have the worst experiences with. And it's like, dude, shut the fuck up, man. Yeah. Like just go over there. Because now you've opened the floodgates and people are coming in and they're going to take their little snipes at like, oh, and it just like, there's substantive shit to get on people for. Stick to that. You could have kept it at all cops are bastards, period. As a white person, especially black cops, that whole line of thought should have never got there. And I don't think the original person who made this bad post did it in bad faith even. I think that they said some shit, they stepped in it, got defensive, doubled down a little bit, and then it spiraled out of control as more shittier people started coming in and co-signing. And after a while, they got to a point where they were like, okay, this got away from me. Like, I don't agree with even some of the people coming out to defend me at this fucking point. You know? So it's like, man, just let us handle it. Just let us handle it. Yeah, there are tons of black people that you can platform, whose voices that you can boost, who speak out against this. Let them do it. And collect your own folk.
Exactly. When people come in from that group, from that in group, and call you out and say, listen, and they do it in good faith, because we all know there are bad faith arguments out there, but this is, if somebody's coming there, they're in good faith and they're saying, no, listen, you got it wrong here, and you got a whole swath of people coming in here and trying to tell you that and warning you that, and you're still battling those people, is probably not a good look. You should probably reevaluate, just take a step back, reevaluate, reassess the situation, and approach it with some more care and understand, just how equity in these spaces works, and to try to just step back and allow other people to hold some space and to try to platform those people. You should be able to find, if Kamala Harris or a black person or some person is deserving of criticism, you should be able to find pretty easily someone within that group that is criticizing them, and to try to lift their voice up, at least in your discussion.
And if you can't, then maybe you're not as well educated on that issue. If you can't find a single black voice that can say something to counter a Candace Owens, then you're not as in tune, and your finger's not on the pulse of the black community as much as you think it is. Yeah. And at which point you probably shouldn't be leading this goddamn conversation to start with. And that's what riled me up so bad, because it was a lot of bad faith disputes about how, we can't critique her because she's black, and y'all let her slide because she's black, and no one was doing that. It's ACAB all fucking day. I got mad issues with black cops, but let me be the one to call that out. You can just talk about the issue that is police as a whole and how they're all bastards.
Yeah, absolutely.
Calling out specifically black cops to black people. Because there's hundreds of thousands of white cops that you could go fucking call out right fucking now.
And let me say, like, if you need the soundbite, like, here, you can have the soundbite right now. Like, in my experience, black cops and cops of color are, will go extra hard and are some of the worst to Black people in Black communities. Why? Because of the way that the system is set, they have to prove themselves to their white, whatever the hell you call them, colleagues, and so that need to sort of prove themselves, prove that they're not one of those types of Black people, often leads them to be worse than other ones, right? So not to say that all Black cops are worse than all white cops or anything like that, but you can absolutely find Black cops that are worse than white cops in all kinds of situations. There were, NYPD, I can't reference, I don't want to use this dude as a reference, but there, yeah. So I'll leave that reference out because of who did the story on it. But anywho, there are plenty of instances in the NYPD connected to the Khalif Browder case, Black cops that were horrendous and horrific and literally sexually assaulting women, raping women, like using their power for all kinds of gross stuff. You could also find just, massive amounts of white cops throughout history that have done that or far worse. And so, if you need that soundbite, you can come get that soundbite here. You can get some critique like that from Black folks.
And not for nothing, like those Black cops that you say are the goddamn worst, they're like almost always the only ones who ever get caught and or locked up for their fucking buffoonery. So like, don't worry about going so hard to put your target on them. Like, they'll get theirs, because they're the first ones to get thrown under the bus. They're the first ones if you ever hear a police shooting and the cop gets charged, it's usually because they're a person of color.
Exactly.
Let's be real here.
Yeah.
They're the ones that get thrown to the fucking wolves. All right. Yeah. So and that's not as a
and let me just say, no, I'm not shedding a tear for those.
No,
cops. You ain't gonna get any sympathy out of this guy right
Go
here.
Go look at our video on the cop who got beat up because he was impersonating a protester.
Just last
that's
week,
what your dumbass got. No tears shed for you, buddy. I'm just mad that they paid out a little settlement to your funky ass for getting beat up. Because fuck all cops. Period.
Yeah, we need to completely change the system and the institution of policing in this country. Completely tear it down and to rebuild something in its wake, because the system is the problem and we need systemic change. And the idea of putting Black faces in high places is not going to fundamentally change the system in any way. And we are very much aware of that, and we are very capable of making that argument. And we're here. You can use this. You can check out our other content, and you'll find plenty more critiques like this. And you don't need to go to the point of trying to fill that space. White folks hold enough space everywhere else, on the left and everywhere else in this country. And so just let marginalized people take up some of this space.
Especially when it gets to the point where you're talking over them. Goddamn, man. And this is why y'all don't understand. This is why a lot of Black activists and Black people don't really feel at home on the left, because y'all get into this
and I just want to correct, not to say that we then feel more comfortable on the right.
No,
okay?
God, no. God, no. We just end up being apolitical or feeling like we have no turn to, because the right overtly hates us. The left likes to condescend to us and tell us that they know better than us. Be quiet.
Very paternalistic.
You don't know what you're talking about. I organize and I've run protests. So trust me on this. All right.
I know what's best for Black people. Trust me.
We have to extra go hard on these Black cops. You don't get it. If I leave it to you, you'll be soft on them because they look like you. Come on now, dude. Yeah. If you don't understand how you're overstepping there, trust us enough to fucking have this. Trust us enough to be capable enough to critique other Black people. Do you just not have faith in us that we can't critique other Black people because they're Black?
Exactly. It's very insulting to our intelligence to act as if we are simply blinded. Do white people need to be told that you don't need to shield Donald Trump because he's white? Nobody thinks that white leftists are going to shield Donald Trump from criticism because he's white, but somehow it gets, misconstrue that black folks somehow are just going to, and trust me, there is some segment of black people out there, older black folks, that it's a defense mechanism. They have gone through and they've seen the worst of the worst, and they are defensively trying to protect all black people, because they're just so used to black people being attacked and disproportionately so, that I understand their defensiveness. But there are plenty others, and especially in the younger generations, that are completely capable, very capable of criticizing our own in a substantive way that is both nuanced and substantive, and actually connects to the material ills of people in black communities at large. And we don't need, we don't need white saviors to do that for us, and we're not looking for a white savior. That's not what we're out here looking for. And you don't need to, white folks acting like they are. It's a really bad look. It's a really bad look for white folks that are out here talking about, I organize and I help black people. Listen, you do that quietly and stay the fuck over there. Don't be taught, don't go out there. When you go promoting yourself like that, it sounds to me like you're doing it for that reason. Like you're doing these things because you want to be able to self-promote. Like, if you are doing that good work, yeah, exactly. If you're doing that good work, you should be able to do that good work quietly. Stay out of our space, stay quiet in our spaces and allow us to control the few little spaces that we have, just allow some. It's a power, you have to give up some power in that, and you have to get used to that.
Black people can't even get a chance to lead in their own fucking liberation.
Yeah. It's like most people that are oppressed and are seeking to liberate them, for liberation, most are seeking self-determination. And what they need is not for the people in the out group to help them up per se. It's just the people in the out group to get the fuck out of their way finally, right? Like men oppressing women, for centuries, and whites oppressing black people for centuries like that. Like, what women need is not for men to go, be their protectors, and no, they just need us to get the fuck out of their way. Like, we've been in their way for all this time. We black people just need white people to get the fuck out of their way, like they've been in their way all of this time. It's not that we need your help to get up. We just need you stop being an obstacle to our liberation is what we're asking for primarily. And then once you get to that point, then you can start to really do the work of not just being not racist, but being anti-racist, and trying to actually do more work in that area. But I just think that most of the time, it's like, what is needed is for, you got the boot on their neck, right? And you just need to take the boot off of their neck. It's not that they need you to help them up.
Yeah. It's just pure shenanigans. Like, I can't even believe the level of overstepping and lane stepping that I saw going on. It was disheartening to see a bunch of black folks in there trying to say, like, hey, this ain't it, and just see a bunch of black folks getting fucking shouted down. And this is, again, like, the left, if you want to win, like, you got to do better, man, because this class reductionist bullshit ain't it. Like, I'm not like super big into identity politics. I think that race reductionism and going like full liberal identity politics, I'll to specify, liberal identity politics can be toxic as well, and it misses the mark a lot of the time. But just the same, class reductionism can also be toxic. It also misses the goddamn mark a lot of the time, because
like, I just want to say,
some issues need to, like, we have to point out the racial disparities in it, whether it be black or Native American and indigenous folks. Like if we, like, it's not like, yes, police brutality affects everybody, but it affects some people more than others, and that needs to be shouted out. Like, Native American people and indigenous people have been, like, are almost always routinely wiped away from that conversation. Which is going to happen when people not from that community aren't allowed to speak up about these issues, and you try to do this thing that's universal. You get I need to reach out to everybody, that you miss the people who are most being affected. And that's when you lose people that you could gain. Like black people deserve to have a home on the left, but if you want to go just to this class and just ignore everything else, you're gonna lose them. That's why like you have to have real intersectionality and juggle multiple things at once.
Yeah. Yeah, because the reality is that I'm more the reality is my lived experience is going to be more like a poor white person's typically than a wealthy, you know, an uber
Yep.
wealthy black person. You know, like Jay-Z's life is far different than mine. You know, I'm much more like some poor white person in, you know, Alabama somewhere than I am like Jay-Z, who's also black. You know, we just and Jay-Z's might be a unique reference because he actually came up out of like the hood and, you know, like you know, actually came from that sort of upbringing where you have like somebody that was born into like has generational you know, black wealth, which isn't common, but it does exist in some places. And so there are, you know, there are ways in the intersectionality. Class is part of the intersectionality, and it absolutely is an important aspect of that intersectionality. And just on Kwame's point about identity politics and liberal identity politics, just again, because this happens every time I have one of these conversations, people act as if I'm excusing or ignoring conservative identity politics. And conservatives are the number one people at identity politics. Their identity politics is just all geared towards white people. That's their identity. Their identity, like, look at the Republican Party. It is like 95% white. Okay. So nobody does identity politics more than the right wing and conservatives and Donald Trump and these people, you know, like they were all about identity politics. The liberals just do a different version of it where they use weaponized identity politics where they act as if, you know, they'll uplift a certain type of black person or women. They have to be the most, you know, horrendous to their own, you know, people that are willing to harm their own people essentially, or exploit their own people. And they'll lift those people up and try to use their identity essentially as a shield from criticism. And I don't want this to be misconstrued and used, against us in that way to say, oh, well, I guess we're not allowed to criticize Kamala Harris because she's a woman. So now we're not allowed to criticize her, else we're sexist. It's like, no, of course not. We have to be able to criticize her on the substance. I'm not going to go out there like saying shit like, oh, Kamala Harris is acting like she's on the rag or some shit like that. Like, I'm not going to go out there making misogynist like comments to critique Kamala Harris. I can critique her in a way, one, based on blackness that stays in my lane, or I can critique her on just substantive policy-based issues and stay in my lane in that way. So you know, even on a topic of like Kamala Harris, it's an even narrower lane, right? And still, you know, there are ways to go about this that are nuanced, substantive, you know, accurate ways of critiquing someone without having to try to, you know, and in trying to, you know, we should try to center the in groups, try to make sure that we're centering those people and keeping them in the forefront and giving them the space to do their work because they're out there doing it. Oftentimes we're just not doing enough work of our own to go and find those voices and uplift those voices. Yeah.
No one can advocate for a community better than the people in that community.
Yep.
I didn't know that was controversial or a hard thing that needed to be said, but apparently here we are making this video because y'all can't not step in it. And that was really the realest gripe. And this is, like I said, an issue I see happen in the left a lot where they just they seem to think like they know better than people or like they have to be the one leading the conversation on every single topic when it's okay to just like fall back sometime and let someone else take the reins. Like you don't have to center yourself all the fucking time. And again, I'm not saying this specifically. This is we're kind of all over the place because like it did spur out of a specific incident, but this has happened numerous times, and this is a lot of general instances all wrapped into one that we're trying to critique specifically here.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think that we've covered that. You know, I don't know what lasting lingering thoughts you have. We could check out a few of the comments here. You know, Tammy says, I think it's best when people use the stay in your lane method where someone will hold their own community members accountable. But I agree, it doesn't mean others can't do so too. But it requires nuance. Sorry.
Yes, and that was something I kept screaming in there because I'm just like, yo, this is something that requires nuance. And y'all clearly, again, if you're the kind of person that talks over Black people and dismisses what they say, you are not equipped with the nuance to handle a conversation like that. And it gets to be real, like, just real touchy, because like a lot of these people, the same people that when you look at what's going on in Texas, they're over here talking shit about how these people deserve it because they're in a place that voted Republican. But it's like the Black people there got voter suppressed and gerrymandered to all fucking hell. I promise you they didn't vote for Ted Cruz. Why do they deserve to die? Just because they live in a
I'll ask you, to all white leftists out there, did you vote for capitalism? Did you vote to say, I want a capitalist system? No, you're born into these systems, right? And so you're stuck with a lot of these systems. And so there's no way to vote on certain issues. They have, through means of voter suppression, and the fact that we don't have a real democracy, right? That's why what we advocate over on radical democracy is a different kind of democracy in the workplace, because that's the only place that we can really get any type of real democracy, to be honest. And so we don't have a true democracy, and so public opinion really doesn't impact the politicians that get elected. It's by and large wealthy people that are allowed to control this. We have an oligarchy more so than a democracy, and so the ruling class and the sort of wealthy class, the capitalist class, are able to choose the leaders and the people in power. And so we just let's be careful about trying to place blame on the masses of people and the voters for things that are by and large out of their control. Let's not kid ourselves. They didn't bring this on themselves. And obviously every time something like this happens, it's going to disproportionately impact marginalized communities. So, immigrant communities, Black communities, indigenous communities, LGBTQ communities, like it's just going to disproportionately impact those communities. So saying things like they get what they deserve, it really misses the mark. And it's another thing that we have to be careful of, and not become like these callous people that don't care about certain folks because they live in a red state or something, as if that should matter. We need to have a more internationalist, more humanist sort of approach to these things, and recognize the humanity of people wherever they may be, regardless of that. So Tammy also says you need to be self-aware when you make your critique or analysis on an issue, someone without overstepping in the wrong ways that distract from the point. Yeah, exactly. Because this is what this does. This then distracts from the point that's being made, right? When you get in here and you get involved in these conversations in a certain way and you step out of line, then everybody's got to jump in and then handle that issue. And now we've distracted from the fact we should just be talking about. I would rather do videos on all the terrible policy shit that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are doing right now. Like, ignoring all the things that look at how many days we are into their presidency. Look at how nothing is being done right now. We still don't have those stimulus checks. We were promised $2,000 checks immediately after we got those Raphael Warnock and John Ossoff elected in Georgia. We were promised $2,000 checks immediately. Now Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are talking about maybe you'll get $1,400 checks that are further means tested, and it's going to happen in March, April. At this point, it's literally can't happen until March at this point. That was supposed to happen immediately back in January. People are hurting right now, and this is there are substantive issues that we should and could be talking about, but instead folks suck up the oxygen and distract from the issue at hand and substantive issues by talking about by bringing in baseless sort of attacks that just distract from the actual problems at hand.
Yeah, it's nonsense. And yet again, to reiterate, because it cannot be said enough if you're just tuning in, the whole fucking can Black people do it? So because I can't, Black Twitter derailed Kamala's fucking in the primaries. We invented Cop Mala. Why
don't we have President Cory Booker or President Kamala Harris right now? Because Black folks did not vote for those people in the primaries. All right, Black folks did not vote based on just race. They voted for, sadly, sadly, let's be real, the top two vote getters were, not sadly, for Bernie Sanders was one of them, my guy back here, Bernie Sanders, and Joe Biden was the other one. They were the top. At one point, Bernie Sanders was the number one vote getter amongst black voters in the primary, in the Democratic primary 2020. And for all the rest of the time, Joe Biden held that title. All right. So the idea that it was, that black people saw, critiqued substantively these people, not based on identity, but based on the actual substance, and they felt like, honestly, Joe Biden was going to help them based on a whole bunch of other factors that we have to get real about. And there is some identity politics at play there, with sort of being a holdover from Obama, with the older generation kind of tying Joe Biden to Obama and then giving him a pass based on identity. And we can be real about that. And I've made that critique before. But black people definitely did not get tripped up in identity on folks like Kamala Harris and Cory Booker in the primary. They just did not get the lion's share of votes from black people. They were in single digits.
Maybe like some small fringe of the like HBCU black collective.
Yep, the Alpha Kappa Alpha, crew or whatever. Yeah,
that
absolutely.
Co-signed for Kamala, but like overwhelmingly, like, nah, they didn't.
Yeah,
it
was black elites. Let's be real. Black liberal elites are the ones that were out there voting, and it was they're just a small handful of us. And so she did not she never broke double digits with black people. So there's no shortage of critique of Kamala Harris out there. All right. So yeah, just want to say that. Gina Buck, what's up, Gina? Thank you for, I think that's a first time comment from Gina, so appreciate the comment, Gina. Sure. Gina Buck says, overstepping, quote, allies that go extra hard because they're looking out for any opportunities to allow, encourage, and promote racism light. Yes.
Yep, they always find a way.
Yep, absolutely. Gina says the allies feel the need to aggressively defend and, quote, save all marginalized people, but in doing so, they trample the voices and accounts of said marginalized people. Precisely, exactly, Gina. Yeah, spot on. Yep, absolutely. Agree 100%. And then Tammy goes on to say, yes, allies don't need to center their own voice all the time in order to support other marginalized groups. There's such a thing as platforming or uplifting the voices of those actual people instead of centering themselves. Yes, I think that's...
And I'll reiterate, if you cannot find a black person's voice to uplift or amplify, then your work should not be critiquing this person. Your work should be diversifying who you have on your timeline and listening to more black voices in these communities. Because you cannot protect and help liberate a community that you don't even fucking listen to. That is white saviorism.
Yeah.
Fair.
Yeah. And we gotta be, and I have the same critique, whether it's, a black versus white, whether it's, gay versus straight, cis versus trans, like the same critique, indigenous versus, immigrant, like whatever the case is, we should be trying to. And I know, I don't have the capability of bringing people onto my show all the time because that's a limitation of just myself. But what I do is I try to find voices in those communities to uplift, to find examples within those communities and use those as my resources when I'm talking about these issues. And that we should be able to do.
Yep. Because if not, we miss them. Like, unfortunately, no matter how well-meaning we are, we will miss the mark because we're not that in tune with the communities, like it happens every time, every damn time. Like you got to listen to people. Look no further than when that whole fiasco happened with plastic straws in the disabled community. And like disabled people are like, well, actually, we need this to fucking survive. If you had included any of us in this conversation, we could have told you that this was a bad idea. That is a stopgap because you don't want to hold big businesses accountable due to capitalism. All right. Exactly. But no one wanted to include them in the conversation, and they just started making fucking grand sweeping choices. Like, this is what happened. Like, when we say we need representation and diversity, we need it more in the thought and for the voices of who's able to speak out, not just the black faces in high places,
diversify your oppressors, rainbow capitalism, we
don't need that. Like, there are places where we need more black people and more black voices and more black representation, but there's sometimes where that can be bad, and that is a nuanced thing as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is why I like a lot of this. We keep saying nuance, intersectionality. Those are important things that we hold valuable here at Raised Fist Media and at the Radical Democracy Show, which if you haven't already, like, share, and subscribe to the Raised Fist Media YouTube channel, then go on over to my brother over here's channel, the Radical Democracy. And make sure you like, share, and subscribe. Check out our Patreon. Go look at some of our other videos. We appreciate your support. 2 Black leftist YouTube channels that definitely need to be amplified more.
Yep. Thanks for having me on, brother. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming on. Thanks everybody for sitting here and entertaining us while we chopped up some of this, because like I said, it was a little bit too much to fit into the little comment section. The comments ended up getting shut down, unfortunately. I still don't even feel like I was able to encapsulate enough of what needed to be said. But this was just a little primer, some quick thoughts that we wanted to get to y'all, because, you know, it needed to be said.
Yep, absolutely.
But yeah, thanks again for joining us, y'all. We appreciate you, and catch you next time.
All right. Peace.